and if they were captured, they would then be shot as spies. So overall, the operation was a really expensive waste of men and material, and most of the time they weren't even anywhere near the front of the German columns. They were actually in the middle and the back because they were stuck on the roads. This is where the plan really began to go wrong for the Germans, because the roads, despite being prescribed by Adolf Hitler himself, actually could not take the German Panther tanks, Kubelwagens, or basically anything. And as a result, those routes were abandoned, but that led to a dangerous loss of time. And that's what the Battle of the Ardennes was, really. A battle for time. You know, if the Allies could get in enough reinforcements quick enough, the entire plan would be a dead duck. Having done that kind of special forces operation, the Germans then decided to launch Fallschirmjägers. Now, not many people have actually heard of this, because, for whatever reason, but the Germans actually used the Fallschirmjägers as Fallschirmjägers, or at least some of them, during the Battle of the Ardennes. They dropped them behind the American lines, and it actually caused Eisenhower to become a prisoner of his own troops, because they thought that Germans were actually going to come and assassinate him, when in reality they were over 100 kilometers to the, I think it was north, maybe I could be wrong, but, yeah, this again was bungled horribly, because the Fallschirmjägers were led by Heidit, who was a veteran of Fallschirmjäger Regiment 6, had been in Crete, Normandy, really everywhere with the Fallschirmjägers. And this veteran asked the SS, one of the SS leaders of the 6th Panzer Army, or 6th SS Panzer Army as it should be known, you know, what shall we do, blah blah blah, shall we take carrier pigeons? And he just laughed, he literally laughed. Then the Fallschirmjäger leader was had disinformation on the wind speed, so Fallschirmjägers can only jump at a certain wind speed because they're lower than the Allies, because their parachute design was pants. And as a result of this, the SS then lied to the Fallschirmjägers, saying it was much below, but in reality they were reporting wind speeds of up to 100 kilometers. No, not 100. That's ridiculous. That would be a hurricane. Much more. A few tens of kilometers of an hour more than what was acceptable. As a result, the operation was completely scattered. Only one mortar out of about 100 was recovered. 500 Panzerfaust out of 3,000, and in the end, they just ended up giving themselves up effectively. They ambushed a couple of American units, took the people prisoner, and then let them back, and then the operation just sort of fizzed out. Meanwhile, you had the German panzers rampaging along the roads, smashing aside any American resistance they could to get to their vital objectives, the river bridges over the Meuse. This then led to one of the most catastrophic American disasters of the war, when two entire regiments of the 106th Infantry Division were encircled and forced to surrender. I'll have a bit more on that later, I think, because I have an item relevant to that. So you have, however, so the Germans then bogged down slightly due to fierce resistance in front of Bastogne. The result of this was the Americans were able to rush in the 82nd and 101st Airborne for an all-out defence of this location. And I'll let Tim describe a bit more on that.
Right, thanks Toby. So whilst the American 101st Airborne Divisions were defending their area in Bastogne, mainly in the forest itself, you got the very famous, which Toby would agree with, the very famous Band of Brothers kind of esque scene of foxholes and thick bat snow and trees falling down from artillery. That is exactly what it was like. Plus, it was, as I said, minus 20 degrees. So at night, you just couldn't get to sleep because of, you could have, say, 3, 4, even probably more American mates of yours in a foxhole, huddled together trying to get warm. So it was, it was catastrophic. The everybody had to get warm. Everybody had to basically do anything to survive. The Germans actually had proper camo at this, proper camouflage. What they used to do is paint on this anti-magnetic mine paste, which is normally on tanks, on their German Stahlhelms, the steel helmets, and use that as white winter camo, which is very famous. But yeah, Bastogne, or Battle of the Ardennes as sometimes called, very cold and very heroic, famous event. So just before I end the video, does Toby, do you want to mention anything?
Yes, so regarding, just to wind the campaign up, before I go on to just a couple of items, so the Germans then eventually ground to a halt with a little bit of help from the British, which is really unknown. The 6th Airborne were actually involved in the Ardennes, so the same people who'd been in Normandy, and a few others. So the German assault ground to a halt, and when the clouds cleared, Allied aircraft could rain pretty much bombs down on them, and that pretty much scuppered the entire operation. So they couldn't do anything, and overall it wasted virtually all of their man and panzer power they had left, destroyed the Luftwaffe completely, because the Luftwaffe also launched Operation Baseplate, and overall led to a catastrophe of epic proportions for the Germans. Now, onto the items. So, first of all, I talked about the 106th Infantry Division. So, we have the 106th. Basically, a lot of the time, for some reason, people think that it collapsed just because it was a bad division. Well, a division, with German, its lines broke through, panzers rampaging in its rear. You can't really see a division doing much better than that. And when I said 2 of its regiments were captured, I have an item relevant to that, which is an original German press photo of prisoners being taken back from the front. So there's actually footage that corresponds with this photo. It's taken by SS Kriegsberichter Max Buschel, who was actually captured by the Americans, released, and then shot by the Russians after trying to go and see his mother in Berlin for being a member of the Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, which was the 1st SS Panzerdivision. You see him in a few photos in the Ardennes. He took a lot of them. So, yeah, it's very, very historic, but also sad piece, considering a lot of the Americans were killed while in captivity by starvation. And the last piece I have to kind of show that the Germans weren't all, King Tiger tanks, Panthers, really well-equipped SS divisions, is a really, really nice kind of used but not been there condition, pressed off, which is pressed cardboard, shovel carrier that the Germans used. So these are actually getting pretty rare now, because they're made of cardboard, so they actually pressed layers of cardboard together to make it, which means in the Ardennes they basically just melted effectively. It's in black pressed off. You can see these in a lot of original footage with the yellow pressed off ones, which are rarer as well. And it shows that the Germans really were just throwing in their last kind of chips to kind of try and turn the tide, which of course didn't happen because they planned it pretty badly. So, yes, I will hand you back over to Tim. Oh, just before I do, just as a quick note on the pressed off carrier, it's dated GZR 1944, and you can actually see where the handle of the shovel has opened up in the kind of opening for the shovel head itself. So, yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll hand you back to Tim.
Right, thanks Toby. Yes, I'll be having those photos at the end. So yes, from what Toby was describing, it's January 1945. You know, Hitler has really only got, what, January, February, March, April, May, about literally 3 or 4 months until that's it. So, and that was literally the last gamble in the West. Hitler's last ever, attempt to do anything about Germany's defeat. So, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next episode, which is episode 8, I'm going to say, which is going to be mainly about Russia's advance from Russia all the way up to Berlin itself. So, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.